What's up? What's up? It's time for Done Way Past Funny with your host, G.D. Fenderson. Join us as we take a look back at the early works of seasoned comedians before they were seasoned with this week's guest, Ken Sun. It's time to get down and get dope with Done Way Past Funny. Hi, welcome to Done Way Past Funny, where we look at the work of seasoned comedians before they were seasoned. I am your host, G.D. Fenderson, certified forensic humorist at large, but I'm losing weight. My guest is one half of the Bermuda Mavericks and 1/3 of the people responsible for me beginning my comedy career. The comedian, teacher, director, Ken Sons. How's it going, Ken?
Glenn, it's great to be on your show, man. It's like a lot of comedians, they have dreams of, being on the late shows and getting an HBO special, stuff like that. For me, this show right here, man, bucket list. Done. Finally made it, man. I didn't know if you were ever going to get me on here, man.
Well, to be honest, I had to get, I wanted to get things straight because I didn't want you to think that I'd become an abject failure in 9 years. That I worked 9 years only to be a failure.
Yeah. Well, and of course you had to wait till I was completely out of rehab, which I appreciate. That's that way.
Well, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? No,
yeah. So, hey, man, I'm glad to be on the show, and I'm glad that you're still doing this. Are you still getting up and doing stand-up?
Yes.
And how's it going?
It's weird. I never expected to be rich and famous by now.
Yeah.
And I do have the respect of many of my peers, which is good. But I started comedy so late. I started at 54. And that's late in terms of comedy because it takes like 10, 15, 20 years to get established.
Yeah.
And I'll be dead before I get established.
But I'm going to tell you a quick little story. Literally 2 nights ago, one of our comedy graduates from our comedy boot camp,
yes,
83 years old.
Wow.
And he's taken 3 of the classes. He was in a comedy competition down at Vasani's Comedy Club. So they went through 50 different comics all the way down to the finals, and I went down to watch him at the finals. Came in 2nd place.
Great.
83 years old, and he has a great line. He goes, "Hey, I started in this comedy. I never expected to have a long career." 83, he's having a ball. So, that's how you and I met. You took one of our comedy boot camps 9 years ago, which is wild. And, to me, it's always a joy to see someone that had their first experience on a comedy stage, then go on and continue to do it and continue to get up on stage and work their craft.
Well, it's funny because people say that speaking in public is like the greatest fear of most people. And I don't think people understand how that works, because your greatest fear is the thing that you're facing right now. People who are afraid of speaking in public are not speaking in public right now. They should be more concerned about the spiders that are like 4 feet away from them.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm glad to see that you're still teaching, because you and Les McCurdy, I'll say his first and last name, McCurdy Comedy Theater in Sarasota, Florida.
Right. Yeah. We just did a class show last night. We just had our last group just finished, and last night was their their recital as you went through the final thing. Everybody did great. We were closed at McCurdy's for about 1.5 years when COVID first started. And then when we opened back up, we started doing our first comedy class again last January in 2022. And since then, every one of the classes have sold out.
Great.
So I don't know what it was. Maybe a lot of people were like, rethinking their lives during COVID or whatever. But the class is usually like 11 or 12 people, not much more than that. You can't really handle more than that. And we sold out every class, and we have 2 more this year, and those are already sold out too. So it's a joy to see people, step up and do something that most people would never have the nerve to do. I love it. It's like a bungee jump. They're going, yeah, you're leaping out. You're giving it a shot. So
I think part of the reason why there's so many people doing it now is that you guys produce so many really wonderful students who make it look so easy that they think they can do it too.
Yeah, I mean, we get every time, when we do the class show, the students get to invite their friends and families and coworkers. We also have a lot of comedy fans that just enjoy that process, new talent. For most, and I don't know if it was the same for you, Glenn, it is their very first time on a comedy stage. So that's a pretty awesome thing to see somebody and go, this is the very first time they did it. That's how we all started. We all had a first time on an open mic stage. To see somebody at that level. I mean, over the course of the years, Les and I've been teaching these classes, 15 years or whatever. We probably have 20, 25 comedians that have their very first time on stage was at McCurdy's, and now they're out there, making a living doing stand-up comedy, at varying stages in their career. And then there's thousands that just did it as a bungee jump. I want to do it. It was great. Maybe they do it a few more times, or maybe they do it one time and go, hey, I did it. That was great.
I'm still friends with I'm still friends with 3 of the people from my graduating class.
Yeah, isn't that neat? It's a lot of people, you bond kind of, a bonding in the sense of fear and anxiety ties you together. And a lot of people have continued on to be writing partners and, hey, here I heard about an open mic. Why don't you, let's get together, and which is great. I mean, that's to be honest with you, that's if you're doing stand up, to get into a community of comedians is the most helpful thing. They're knowing where other open mics are. Hey, I worked with this guy. Let me put in a word for you. You go and watch other comics. When you're watching other comics and you, after they're set, you come up and you give them ideas. That's writing. You're learning how to write. So being in an active comedy community is definitely the best thing you can do if you're wanting to be a comic. It's like surrounding yourself with like-minded people that look at life similarly as you do and have goals similar to what your goals are. It really, I think it propels you, as opposed to just not being around comics. Most people don't know a stand-up comic and may not ever meet a stand-up comic. And, you look at all of your friends, other than comics, you're probably it. All of your friends and family is not like, oh, yeah, I know 2 or 3 comics, which is very different than going, oh, I'm a doctor. Oh, yeah, I have plenty of doctors. Or I'm an accountant. Yep, I know 4 accountants, but
Or
comics,
I'm a police officer. My father was a police officer. My grandfather was a police officer. And my grandkids will be police officers.
Well, and you will be on the outside of the police officer thing. I hope you never get arrested by one of your grandkids. That would break my heart, Glenn.
Now, when you're teaching a class, because you've been doing comedy at least since 1982, I believe.
Oh,
so
probably. Yeah. I mean,
and so over that time, you've developed your own style, your own personality, your own brand. And when you're doing a class of 11 people, 10 or 11 people, they may have 10 or 11 different styles or approaches to comedy. So how do you reach them? Because you don't want to impose your brand on them, especially if they're not that type of comedian. So how do you remain open, and how do you reach those or teach those people like that?
Well, I mean, it's as in any teaching, you tailor it to the group that you're with. What I'm really teaching is writing, how to write and come up with comedy, and then how to get on stage and perform it. So you may be a very low key, deadpan comedian. I'm super high energy. That's not for everybody.
Right.
So I go, here's how I do it. Here's how I go through the process. But my thing has always been, I encourage people, you know, be true to your own school, be uniquely you. Don't try to be somebody else. The thing that you have that's different than everybody else is your uniqueness. And so once you learn how to write and put material on stage, it's going to come through your filter. Even though I may have been the one that kind of taught you how to go about generating material, I never, and I don't think anybody ever goes, oh, I want to be like Ken. Ken is a different kind of comic, and
Right.
he's being himself. I'm going to be myself. That's what I really encourage everybody to do, because once you start writing, it's like rinse and repeat. I mean, not a single thing in life happens that I don't automatically start twisting it and thinking about how could I turn that into a joke. I'm not on all the time. I'm not one of those people that's I'm always trying to get laughs. If we're hanging out at a party with friends of mine, I'll probably get a few laughs as we go, just like my friends would get a few laughs. I mean, I'm
Right.
never on. I'm not one of those comedians. But I look at life in a funny way, and I'm always constantly generating material. And so, one of the things that I hope to instill in students is that process. What's that process look like for you? You hear something, how do you approach it? What is your filter? What is it you see this thing, and how does it come out as Glenn's point of view? It has zero to do with me because it's not coming through me. We may be seeing the same piece of information that we're writing a joke about. I'm going to approach it in a different way than you might approach it. Same concept, but so that's the big thing, Glenn, is that we try to teach the process of how for you to find your unique process of how to generate material. So it's a different thing for everybody. And
Um,
we try to make the classes fun, so that when
yeah.
you come to the class, you're laughing, you're having a good time, you're getting all of your questions answered about what it takes. You know what it's like when they call your name. Excuse me. When they call your name and what are the first words out of your mouth? What are the last words out of your mouth? How do you hold a mic? Where should you stand? How do you stay in the camera shot?
Right.
All those kinds of things so that when you do get up there, you have the best opportunity to do the best you can do. I always tell people, I go, really, these comedy classes, I look at it's kind of like a pottery class. I want you to come to the class, and my goal is that you leave with a really badass ashtray. I, you know, that's my goal. I don't want you to leave with something crappy. So I want to take you through a process so that when you go up on stage, you come off stage and go, wow, it was as exciting as you said it would be. And I bought into your confidence and I had a great time. That's all. For me, that's it. Whether I ever see those people again or not. But we do have a lot of people that, have taken the classes, 5, 6 times. And each time they do it, they try to write new material. So they still have their little set they're working on, but they're trying new material and they get to perform in the big showroom and meet a new group
Right.
of people as well.
And some people that will be, as a matter of fact, you guys kind of encouraged me to do something for other comedians. One of the things I realized from the class is that some people in that class, most of the people in that class, that will be the one and only and the first and last time that they're on stage doing comedy. And they will
Yes.
have that video of that moment when they were for 3 to 5 minutes, a comedian,
Yeah.
And so
Pretty awesome.
when I started doing comedy, I took pictures of all the comedians and I posted them on Facebook. And some of them went on to use them as their headshots or their first headshots because they're just pictures that I take. I'm not a professional photographer. I'm just trying to capture people's moments.
Yeah,
And
right.
I, and so for some of those people, they have that picture because they'll forget to record it themselves. They just they're so nervous. They get up there, they won't hit record, and they say, "I did it." Oh, I didn't hit record. Now they have at least that moment.
Well, the great thing about what we do at McCurdy's is we have a great sound and light setup, and so when you're up there doing the class, you're getting a video that's high definition, beautiful shot, great sound, and it's a great representation of what you did, and I think that's a pretty cool thing as a takeaway from it.
And the other thing that people don't realize is that the sound guy that you used back 9 years ago, I don't know if you have the same sound person or not, but they were so good. They fixed my jokes as I was telling them because they were really bad when they left my mouth. But by the time the audience heard them, the sound guy had just fixed everything. It was beautiful.
Well, we have a good group of people there, and I mean, it's important for me for people that take the class to get a nice representation of what they did. And I literally, just before we got on, I literally just sent an email out to everybody from last night, congratulating them and with a link to here. They're all posted on YouTube. I mean, you could go over to our YouTube channel if you wanted to in this podcast and go, here's what Ken was talking about. Click on it and you'll see 11 people that for most of them, it was their very first time on stage last night. And so this morning, most of them are going, damn, what an unbelievable experience. And that may be it. And some of them, I already had one person reply and go, hey, what's next for me? What do you think I should do? Get on stage, keep getting on stage. So it's the same thing.
Where are those videos?
What's that?
Where are those videos?
Go to our YouTube channel, McCurdy's Comedy Theater, and and if you look under playlists, there's one each month for the last, all the way back to last January. But there was one we just posted it this morning, and it was the group that went through it last night.
Cool. I'll put that in there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when how did the name Bermuda Mavericks come to be? And if I ask Les, is he going to have the same origin story?
No, he'll probably make up one as well. We've done a lot of television and radio shows and stuff, and people always ask, and you know what? It was no real big revelation. It was just like, we kind of felt like, hey, because we do a lot of improv and working with the crowd and stuff, so we're that concept of we're like Mavericks or whatever. I don't know how Bermuda Mavericks came up. I mean, we should probably come up with a total bullshit story that's engaging and then go, okay, so let's say that when people ask. But to be honest with you, it's not, it's just Les and I have known each other since we were 6 years old, and we still make each other laugh, and we still are constantly improvising with each other just through our texts and phone calls and things like that. We have fun in life. So when we're out doing a gig, we enjoy ourselves. We're getting on a plane, we're flying somewhere to do a big show. We go out and have a nice dinner when we're there, have a couple of beers afterwards. We hang out together. That's where we really get a chance to hang out more so than here in our own town. I've got 2 young kids. I've got a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old. Les he and his wife are doing a lot of raising of their grandchild who is 4 years old. So our worlds, it's hard for us to get together and hang out. So when we hang out, it's a lot of times it's when we're going to do a gig.
Now, that opened up 2 different questions for me. One is, because you still do, for the most part, not for the most part, and I didn't mention this before in the green room. Wow, the green room. But if I say anything that's wrong or I need to be corrected, just feel free to correct me.
I will.
Okay, because you can't hurt my feelings because my first wife got those in the divorce. So you can't hurt my feelings. So just correct me if you have to.
I will.
All right. Now, a lot of what you guys do now are the auctions, the charity
Well,
auctions and things
to
like.
be honest with you, that is really all we do now. The only stand up I do is at Les's club, McCurdy's Comedy Theater. I live 10 minutes from there. So when Les is
Okay.
out of town or he and his wife are out of the country, they always call me first. Hey, Ken, do you want to host? And if I don't have things going on, I mean, I've got young kids, so I might be seeing shows that my kids are both in musical theater. So, I can't do it on these two, but I can do it on these two. Uh, so I go and I host, and that's as much stand up as I want to do, to be honest with you. I'm not going to tour anymore. When we first got started, we were out on the road for about 18 years, 45, 48 weeks a year. We were constantly touring, and it was great. We loved it. I'm not doing that anymore. Even if I didn't have kids, I wouldn't do that. I can't now. And so we used to do open for a lot of big bands. Uh, we would do a lot of corporate stuff. Where we are now is we would still entertain. There's a dollar amount that you entertain anything, right? Hey, would you guys be willing to come to California and open and do this thing for this amount of money? There is a number that we go, we're in. But it's we have as much as we want to do. And so what we've really focused on are these live auctions for big charity events. Not a lot of comics do it. We fly in, we do the charity event, and many times we're home in 24, 36 hours. Unless it's on the West Coast, then we have to go out a day early. But those kinds of things, we'll do that till we're too old to get on stage. I mean, we have a good time. We get on the plane, we each have a script. It's 10 items. It's a trip to Aspen, and here's a description of the trip, who donated it, how much it's worth, that kind of thing. Les has a script and I have a script. We both write, punch up, and do jokes on it. I don't tell him what I'm going to say. He doesn't tell me what he's going to say. And then we get on stage and we are auctioning off these items, throwing in lines. It's fun for us to try to make the other person laugh. But the key is we're trying to make as much money as we can for the charity. But right behind it is make it a hilarious show for the 95% of the people that are not bidding on those $10,000 trips. They've paid $250 to come and support the charity. Maybe they've bought a silent auction item. They're not into that. And so for all of those people, they get a really great comedy show. And we do a lot of improvisation. But I mean, I'm laser focused on making the most money that I can for the charity. I mean, we're brutal. We're like reaching in your pockets, getting the money. We're shaming you. And we're good at it. We've done it a long time. We're very good at it. We know human nature. We try to pit the two guys that think they're the coolest guys and the richest guys in the audience against each other and get that money up. And that's great. That it doesn't require big touring schedules. We can pop out and do it and we're back, and I love doing that kind of stuff.
Now I have actually the clip is total 5 minutes long, but I divided it up into like 2.5-minute sections. This is from your website. So it's like a 2.5-minute version of an auction so that people get an idea what we're talking about. So
you're going to cut that in later?
I'm going to play it right now.
Oh, okay.
So we'll watch it together. If there's anything you want to add about it, you can, or
okay.
And while it is playing, nobody's going to hear anything you say. The mics are automatically muted.
Okay.
So, all right, cool. So I'll play that now.
There's two ways we can go about this. Les and I can go through each and every item we have.
That's right. We have 14. We have 14
fabulous
things. We can go through this ponderously one by one by one. Or we can get one $100,000 bid and get the hell out of here. Anybody?
Sir, do 3,000. The crowd will erupt, and this will be one of the best moments of your life, and he's going to do it. He is going to do it.
Yeah.
Don't talk to your business partner. Just raise your paddle. $3,000. I got 29. Will you go 3? He's going to do it. The crowd will go crazy. 3,000. He raised. Ken, you didn't notice? He raised his buddy's paddle. 14, 15. Do I see 16? Back to you. 16, 16, 17. 17. Do I see 18? 18. Do I see 19? Over there. 19. Do I see $2 grand right there? Do I see 21? 21. I've got 2,000 right here. Do I see 21? 21 right there. Thank you, sir, for jumping in here.
He just woke up.
He woke up. What the heck's happening here? What's this paddle for? I'm burning up. I'm hot in here. Each time you drink a glass of this wine, it reverses your age by 1 week. Yes, it is documented that one of the Maryvales on their 21st birthday drank so much of this particular wine that by 1 o'clock in the morning, they actually were not legal to drink anymore. You also get the use of a Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. Unlimited use? Unlimited use. Just,
No, is it unlimited use?
You can drive it all over the country if you want to.
Or is it the Jeep Wrangler Unlimited?
No, it's a Jeep Wrangler. You can drive it to the Grand Canyon and back. For who cares?
Whatever you want to do.
Right, it's unlimited.
You can let the kids drive.
Sure.
It's
unlimited.
Don't matter.
Here, Timmy, get behind the wheel. Here's a pillow. What the heck? 59, 6. Do I see 6? That the crowd will go crazy. This is the most we've raised in one night. He'll go $6,000.
I don't know how comfortable you're watching yourself, but
Oh, I love it. I watch that same video every night before I go to bed. It's a big ego boost.
As a matter of fact, I just added it to my select collection of things to watch before I go to bed as well. Because I hadn't seen it until I prepared for this interview. Now I do have a couple of questions about that. Have you because you mentioned you kind of like shame people into spending a little bit of money.
Yeah.
How often do people come up afterwards and say to you, I really didn't want to spend $3,000 on that. Thank you very much, Ken.
Every performance, we have people come up to us afterwards and go, my wife and I literally said in the car, we're not going to spend more than $2,000 on any live auction item. And we just spent $4,300, great. It's for a charity, and many of these people that, purchase a trip to Aspen and a ski week and the whole bit for $7,500, they would give that charity a check for $7,500 anyway. You know what I mean? They're there. Right. They're supporters of that zoo or that children's organization or whatever. And so we just make it a fun way for them to do it. And then all those items are donated by different sponsors and other people in that community. Les and I will also put together, live auction items, which, we set it up on a hotel here in Sarasota where we get them to fly down. They stay at a hotel. They come to a comedy show, eat at nice restaurants, and we auction that off. So it's a fun way to get people more engaged in the charity. It's a deeper integration with what they already feel about the organization.
Now, we did not discuss this in advance, but it just occurred to me, in the event that Les cannot make an auction, I have glasses. I can pull my hair back.
You look a lot like Les, to be honest.
Yes, I'll fill in for Les. I'll say, now give me $4,000 worth of what you got there, sir. See,
Can I tell you something? The way you did that was perfect. And I'm going to say Samuel L. Jackson. That's what it was. That's what it came across to me, man. It had the same vibe of Samuel L. Jackson. Yes. So I'm going to keep you in mind if that happens.
I want those MFing paddles and the MFing air.
You should do an impression of Samuel L. Jackson. And that's it. Think about doing the voice of Les McCurdy as yourself, and it comes out as Samuel L. Jackson, who is a great actor.
So if for some reason Les can't make one, but you've already committed, you have it stand-in, I can do it.
I got it, man. I know how to get in touch with you.
Yeah. So just now when you prepare mentally because you said you don't do stand-up very often, but occasionally you'll fill in the mental preparation for stand-up versus the mental preparation for an auction. Is there a difference?
No, I mean, I've done this so long. It's what is required of me. I'm going up to tell jokes. I'm going up to do an auction. I'm going to be on a podcast, whatever. I don't even think about it until I log in and say, "Hey, Glenn, how you doing?" I don't have anything prepared. I'm here, and that's what I do when I do stand up or the other things too. Now, stand up, obviously, I'm putting up material. New idea comes to me, I write it, I put it on stage, I rewrite it, put it on stage, tweak, and eventually it becomes like a bit that I use. It's in my script, but I don't prepare. And I'm not trying to say that like, wow, I'm so good. I've just done it so long. It's like anybody that's done a job a long time, you don't have to go, do you have to psych yourself up to go in for your accounting business? No, man. When Jim Smith comes in, I get the calculator out. I know all the questions. I don't have to psych myself up. It's the same thing, when you start, you're anxious and, what if this doesn't work and whatever. I'm just like, I just go up and have a good time, really, to be honest with you.
Okay, now I have you also produce short films? Is that good to say for to put it?
Both short and long films.
Well, I'm saying short, but they're like an hour long. So,
they're features. I've done 3 documentary feature films.
Okay.
And I just released like a couple of months ago, a short documentary. It's about a friend of mine, and that'd be if I don't know if you put links in here,
I will.
But that would be it'd be a great one. It's about a friend of mine who is transgender and the trials and tribulations of his life as he's gone through his whole process. And of course, we live in Florida, so it is not the best environment for somebody like him, but he's a great person. He's a very eloquent speaker. And we told his story. And so I'm very into, I've done a lot of music videos and commercials and different things like that, but I'm really drawn to the documentary format. I like to tell stories.
What's his name?
Jason Lee. After we get off the call, we'll send you a link to it. It's up on Vimeo. People can click over and watch it. It's a 20-minute film. I'm really proud of it. The things that I am doing more so now are shorter projects. I like to do small, short documentaries because I've just have such a busy life with my family and with doing stand-up. I just have a lot of things going. And to do a documentary is all-encompassing, a feature length. And I just don't have the bandwidth to do that, but I'm doing what I like to do. If I see a story that I like, I'd like to be able to do it. And some of them, might be a 10-minute documentary, a very short documentary that tells it's a small arc. It's not their whole arc. It's what I've chosen to go, I want to tell this story about what's going on.
Now, you did a documentary, Toyland.
Yes.
That must, I don't want to say that must have been fun, but
it was an unbelievable experience. My partner on that is a toy inventor, and what we did is, and I met him through the comedy class. He took a comedy class because he does speaking around the country, and a year after that, we ran into each other, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I just released my very first film, which was Knuckleball."
The good life. The life you're living when someone you admire, someone you respect, turns to you and says, this is you at your best, you making the biggest positive difference in the life of someone you care about.
Let me tell you a little bit about me. I have a type of muscular dystrophy, unless you're a Christian Scientist, in which case I'm a hypochondriac.
And he says, I just wrote a book called Timeless Toys. And it was about all these old toy inventors that were toys that we grew up with, that, you know, the inventor of the Slinky, which you'd never know that was, yet it sold millions and millions of products. It's not like a music act that sells millions and millions of records. Everyone knows who they are. And so what we did was, the whole arc of the film is he came up with a toy. And so the whole development of it, all the way to launching it at Toy Fair in New York City. And along the way, we also interviewed a lot of new toy inventors that were there at the convention, but we also interviewed the inventor of Slinky and Play-Doh and Rock'em Sock'em Robots and Twister and Nerf. And most of these inventors were in their 80s, some in the 90s. If you remember the Ant Farm?
Right, yeah. Yeah.
93-year-old guy that invented it. We went to his house and we interviewed him. And he was a hoot.
He said he put 3 kids through college on that.
Yeah, put three kids through college with the ants. The ants paid for them.
Yeah.
You know,
that's almost a direct quote from the movie.
It was. It was a wonderful experience for me. And we screened it at multiple film festivals around the country. It's screened in that Australia. It also got picked up at the equivalent of PBS in Japan, and it ran there. And you know, it got seen by a lot of people, and it was a great experience for me. All of them are great experiences for me. I've never had anyone, oh, that was terrible. I ride the wild pony, man. Whatever happens, I go the way of that. And, you know, I just want to tell stories, and I want to come up with the best ideas, and I like to collaborate with people. And so all 3 of my films, my feature films, were that process for me. And my latest one is kind of a labor of love. It's about something that I feel very strongly about, and, you know, equal rights for people, and an understanding that at the end of the day, we're all the same. You know, what that person's rights are is not taking anything away from you. You know, let people be people. You know, so, you know, it's what I'm all about. It's what I'm trying to teach my children. Right. So those are the kind of stories that I'm drawn to now.
Now, 2 things. What's the name of that one you just mentioned?
A Leap of Truth.
By the time I was 2 years old, I knew that something was wrong. When I was 2, I told my parents, when I grow up, I'm going to be a boy. And at that point, they thought that I was just going to like girls.
Okay.
I'm going to send you a link when we get off of this, and then you can add that. I'm very proud of it. It's really a good, it's very timely. I will tell you that.
Now, you mentioned your children.
Yes.
And I honestly, after the first time I met you, I honestly didn't think you were allowed to have children legally. But since you did, when you watch the movie Toyland, is there like a game on there that you think I could really be kicking my kid's butt at this?
Well, you know, what was very cool is we interviewed the inventor of Slinky. She was probably 85 at the time. And she was such a beautiful, gracious woman, and just really fun to interview, and just so sweet. And my partner on the film, he found an original Slinky that he got off of eBay, and gave it to her during the shot. And she's looking at this, and of course she knew it was one of the original ones. And she's sitting there doing the Slinky thing in front. I'm tearing up. I mean, I grew up with a Slinky. You know, Slinkies were like the cool thing. And I'm sitting here watching this woman do it. And she goes, "Oh my God, where did you find this?" And it was a powerful, powerful moment. And she took us out to lunch at her country club. And when we left, she goes, "I have something I want to give you." And she gave us a bottle of like 1967 Dom Perignon.
Wow.
And she says, I want to give this to you. And we said, oh my God, are you kidding me? Just you doing this was like an amazing thing for us. And we said, look, we'll take it, but you have to promise to be at the world premiere of Toyland. And she goes, I will be. I'll be there. Fast forward the story, before we were able to premiere the film, she passed away. And so my partner and I, we had 6 sold out screenings here at the Sarasota Film Festival, world premiere. And after the last one, we had a cooler, had that ice down, a couple of crystal glasses in there, and we went up on top of the car garage, and there was nobody up there. The moon was out, the whole bit, and we had a nice toast of Dom Perignon to Betty James. And it was the best champagne I've ever had or probably ever will have. So those are the kinds of palpable moments that I'm so drawn to, to meet these people that are affect you, me. I hope that I portray it in a way that it affects somebody else. But at the end of the day, I'm telling stories that are powerful to me and experiences that are powerful to me.
I know my family and my wife and I, we would have a family cookout once a year. And every year I would introduce a toy from my childhood to the new generation, who
Cool.
had, yeah. And so one year I had the Rock'em Sock'em Robots out, and I bought and they were playing the Rock'em Sock'em Robots, and the line was forming with the kids, and I bought the jacks and the ball with the jacks, and my mom, who was in her 80s, and her sister, who was a little bit older, they were playing jacks together, and they were fussing just like they were kids.
Well, toys are, they're like evergreen, whatever worked in the play patterns that worked originally still work. The guy who invented Rock'em Sock'em Robots, he lived in Chicago when we flew up to interview him. He also was a pilot. The guy was 85 years old.
Wow.
And he had a house that, it was one of those where there's a runway behind the house, right? It's one of those communities. So literally he parked his plane, had a big, huge garage right behind his house. And, and he took us up. And my wife is like, seriously, the guy's 85. I mean, it was wild. It was a wild experience here. He took us up, and, he was telling us the whole story about Rock'em Sock'em Robots. And, he's the same guy who invented Light Bright.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So he has the originals, prototypes, the guy who invented Operation, and he had the original prototype that he sold the idea. It's just interesting stuff, As a comic, if I'm working the crowd and I'm talking to people from the stage, I'm interested and I ask questions. And that's the same way as a filmmaker. I'm interested. I want to know more about it, and especially if it kind of intersects what my childhood was about. That's super interesting to me. So I have equal desires. I love doing stand-up, still do, but I also truly love being a filmmaker. Those are my two passions.
Now, when you first began comedy, how did your view of comedy from when you first started, how does that compare to the way you view comedy now?
Well, at the end of the day, it's the same thing. Material is different based on it's a different time. Things that I might have written jokes about then, I wouldn't write about now, or vice versa. But at the end of the day, it's how do you come up with an idea that makes people laugh, that triggers something that either they can relate to or whatever, or it's a spin in a certain way that make people laugh. So my philosophy has not changed in the sense of that's what I'm always about. But I still enjoy coming up with an idea and then putting it on stage, and it works. And if it doesn't work, and they all don't work, sometimes I go, oh, that seemed a lot funnier to me on the way into work this morning, but thanks for giving me a rehearse my show, but I still enjoy it.
Now, how about the business side of comedy? Because that's the joke side and the creativity side. But comedy as a business, that's a different.
Yeah. Well,
course,
and I will tell you, like Les McCurdy and his wife own McCurdy's Comedy Theater. Les and I are partners in the comedy boot camp. We're partners in that. So they're both into the business of comedy, running a club, selling drinks and food and stuff like that. The business of being a comic are a lot of things. Early on in the career, it was like trying to get on TV shows and trying to get bookings around the country and all. None of that is even in my, it's not what I do. I don't do a lot of social media to promote comedy. I just get on stage down at McCurdy's.
Why don't we start off my part of the show and find out by applause how many people think I look like a comedian? How many people think I look like a gay construction worker? Okay, good. One guy.
I knew it. Hammer.
And that's as much comedy as I want to do. I'm not trying to get a TV show or get a lot of likes on social media. That's not my game. It's not my end game. If somebody goes, hey, I can put a deal together and you can go out on the road for 45 weeks. I'm not doing it. I've got to, there's a thing where you work till you can get fuck you money. And fuck you money is where somebody goes, hey, would you be willing to do that? No, I'm good. I've got enough. In the early days, you'd go do anything for money. But at some point you go, I don't need that. And it's the quality of my life is really, what I'm driven by now. It's not by a lot of the things that comics that are still out there doing it, that are selling T-shirts and doing tons of social media, trying to do radio interviews and all that. I'm just not into it. It's not my thing. So I've done it in the past, but it's not where I am now.
Now, speaking of in the past, at least for me, there were a few people that, for me to make them laugh or to hear their laugh, meant more to me than the other laughs. Like one person.
Yes.
Is there someone in your life whose laughter meant more than all the other laughs?
Well, I mean, Les and I love to make each other laugh. If we can make each other laugh, that's fun for us, right? We know the underbelly of what's happening, but if they say something on stage, you go, oh man, I love that bit. That's a great bit. I like to see my kids laugh, and my wife laugh, but I'm not always doing material in front of them. I might do something that's recorded and I go, here's a new thing I put up. Tell me what you think. And, they watch it and, that's fun for me, but I do it for myself, Glenn. I don't, hey, let me run this joke by you. What do you think? I just do them in my head. I put them on my paper. A lot of them are through voice memos, and then I go and try it. And I'm not going to even say most of the time. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they kind of work and I rework them and get them to where they work. And some ideas just go into an old file of I'll deal with that one later. It's not quite there. So, but it's just my thing. It's just what I do.
Now, I guess I don't. The influences that comedic influences. Well, actually, influences don't even have to be comedic because you do film as well. So I was just wondering who inspired you, whose work inspired you to do what you do, or influenced you?
As far as comedy, I was, Richard Pryor was he was another level of, I was very young when I would watch him on The Tonight Show and was just amazed by him. And I did get a chance to meet him in the later part of his life. Les and I went to the American Comedy Awards out in Los Angeles. And afterwards, everybody went to the Comedy Store and he was there. And it was, he had MS, so he was in a wheelchair. But I got to shake his hand and said, hey, man, thanks for everything. George Carlin was another one. And I got to meet him and, shake his hand. And so those were comedy influences. As far as filmmaking goes, Ken Burns is like the ultimate documentarian, and I
Right.
love his work. But I just love telling stories. So it's not like I follow a pattern or have an influence. I just go, how do I tell my story? I mean, the tools are the tools. So I guess those would be what I would say.
Now, when you like I said, you and Les have known each other since you're like 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
You've done comedy together, I think, since '82. Did y'all start off together doing comedy in '82?
Yeah, we did.
Were y'all separate and
No,
then
we
joined
started off
together?
Les and Ken, the men of 1,000 faces. We probably had
Oh.
eight. We probably had 8 faces, but we didn't know what was good. We just started out. We didn't have a clue. We were really influenced by Saturday Night Live, and we did a lot of sketch work with costumes and props and all kinds of stuff. And then we toured for a while together, and then we hit a point where we said, hey, we need to split up. Instead of splitting the money that you'd make for the middle act, we went out and did our own thing. And then we had you weren't splitting a room. As adults, we said, how do we move forward? And that's what we did for many, many years. And then we put the Bermuda Mavericks together. And then we toured for many years doing that as well, doing single stand-up and doing the Bermuda Mavericks as well. We had another act that toured with us, a guy named Sam Walsh, who was our partner. And so we all did stand-up, and then at the end, half of the show was improv and sketch.
Now, Sam Walsh, is he still doing comedy? Do you know?
No, he's a professor at a university here in Florida. But he was always very, very funny guy. But it ran its course for him. He was just, I mean, there are a lot of people that just don't stay in it. I mean,
right.
It's not the easiest life in the world.
Right. That's that's true. That's true. Now, let's see here. Make sure I get here. So I did actually prepare some questions. Now, do you have, from the years back then, do you have like a favorite bit that once in a while you think about and you go, that was really funny? I don't know why people didn't think it was, but that was really good.
I don't know, man. To be honest with you, if you said, hey, where did you work last week? I don't know. I'd have to look at my calendar. I don't. There's nothing.
Oh, you can. I'll wait. You can go look. I'll wait. No, I'm just
right. I don't have anything to go, oh yeah, it's that joke or this joke or why didn't that? I mean, I'm literally in the moment. I mean, like I'm working this weekend, and I'm gonna put up a couple of new things and try it out and see how it works. And I'm on to the next thing. I don't really think back on what was that bit. Sometimes I can't even remember what I used to do. I'd say, I used to do something on that. What was that?
Now, as far as comedy duos go, there's usually a person who's like, okay, like Burns and Allen. There's a straight man and a
straight man and a comic.
Right. Yeah. But you and Les aren't like that. You and Les are like, you're pretty much comedy equals.
Yeah, we're both.
You take turns. It's like whatever. It's almost like whatever void is there, someone will fill that void or something.
Yeah, whatever the bit is that we're doing, the premise. I could be the comic or I could be the straight guy. You have to have that to really make the comedy work. You can't have two. It's harder to do it as two comics. Somebody has to set it up.
Right.
And so that's the way we've always approached it, which is different. Most people, there's Abbott and Costello,
right.
That's clear who's the straight man, who's the comic. We just approached it as our own. We forged our own thing. How do we make people laugh? That's the thing.
Now, was that by design, or was that just something that you guys realized, like you didn't start emulating, going like, well, you should be the straight guy, no, I'll be the straight guy, or did it just evolve?
Had conversations about that. It just evolved into what we do. Just go, hey, why don't, if I do this, then that'll give you it just evolved. There was no like strategy. Why don't we be different? It just became what it was.
That's cool. That's cool. What do you remember about the first time you took the stage as a comedian?
I'm gonna tell you that story, and then I've got to kind of. I think we've been on for about an hour. I'm gonna have to kind of wrap up here soon.
No sweat.
But I'll tell you my very first time on stage, man, is I was telling you we did a lot of props and things like that. We were started at the Comedy Works in Denver, Colorado. And that's where Roseanne Barr started. We did open mic night with her as she got started. And the very first time on stage, we were going to do 3 little sketches. And so I had on 3 pairs of pants, 3 shirts. We had props. So we'd go out and we'd do the first sketch, and then the lights would go out, and then you just hear a flurry of clothes being changed. Lights would come back on. We're 2 new characters, and that's how we approached it. We didn't know. We didn't have any idea. It was not stand up. And they liked us because they go, these guys, two guys from the South out here in Colorado, just going for it, going balls out and doing it. So the very first time on stage, we were doing a sketch where Les goes on stage, and he's like a therapist. Miss Jenkins, send in the next patient. And as I was walking through the door, I was freaked out, man. I was first sweating like crazy. I'm wearing 3 sets of clothes, just freaked out. And I walked out, and there was a hook that caught my belt loop as I walked through the door. And I was so freaked out, I didn't have the wherewithal just to remove. I just pull, rip the whole first pair of pants all the way down. And I just was freaked out and walked onto the stage and tripped and fell flat on my face. My first time on stage was falling onto the stage. And when I did, the audience started laughing, and that jarred me back into it. And then I was able to go through and do the whole thing. But it was a very wild experience for me. So I know when these people go up in these class shows, how nervous they are and how anxious they are because they don't know what to expect. I remember that. That's, I think that's part of what makes me a good teacher, because I know what it's like. I don't teach like you should be at this level. I teach like I know where your head's at. Let me get you through that piece, and then you'll go to the next. So that's really kind of the whole approach with it.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this with me.
Oh man, my pleasure, Glenn. I'm glad things are going well for you. I'm glad you're still getting up on stage. That's great. Keep you young.
Yeah, so that it will. So I will see you at the next class reunion. No, that's
So I'm going to send you a link to my latest documentary as we get off, and then send me a link once you post this.
Yes, I will. Yes.
Beautiful.
And thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right.
Great seeing you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.